Hi, this is Sharath for the PA Inquirer. Here we have Josh, who is a traveler who travels by bicycle from all the way from UK, and he is actually traveling a trip all the way from UK to China. So let's ask Josh more about his experiences and his travels, his plans, his future plans, and everything. So hello, Josh. How did you start all this?
I decided a few years ago that I would like to visit China, and I enjoy cycling, and I wanted to be able to see all the countries along my route. I had the privilege of being able to give up my work, and so I decided to cycle initially overland from my home in Bristol, in Britain, all the way to China. That plan changed along the way, and I've now been on the road for about 3 years. Stopping in each country along the way for 2 or 3 months, and volunteering for free for people who are in challenging circumstances. And I've just arrived in Chennai in India from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. So like I say, it's started off as an overland journey, and I've kind of taken a few detours along the way, and I'm just beginning what should be perhaps 6 months to a year traveling around India.
So before starting all this journey, amazing journey through Europe and everything. So what were you doing? So what were you doing in England? How the transition happened.
Well, by profession, I'm a financial controller. I started my career after university working for charities and community projects, then small businesses. I then worked offshore for about 6 years in Gibraltar, and then started to work for multinational companies back home. Over the years, I've worked when I was studying, so in holidays I've done building work and factory work and made hamburgers and all sorts. But yeah, by profession, I've generally worked in finance. I basically describe it as counting money, counting other people's money, counting it in and counting it out. So that's kind of what inspired me to, as I've done this journey, to volunteer in each country, generally for people who are on very low income or having some difficulties in their life, and being able to work for them for a period, not asking for money. Generally, they will give me somewhere to sleep and some food in my belly, and I will work for them for free while I am in the country before moving on somewhere else.
Which all countries you have traveled so far?
Through Europe, I literally left my house and travelled south through Britain, and then took a boat to Spain, travelled through Spain and Portugal, then Morocco, Italy, Greece, Turkey. Once I arrived in Turkey, I couldn't pass through Iran because of the political situation at that time. And as I'd had a cold winter in Greece that year, I decided to travel to Kenya looking for some sunshine for 1 month, and then I ended up there for 18 months traveling around Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, before returning to Dar es Salaam in Tanzania and flying to Chennai. So
So you're traveling by a bicycle, in a bicycle.
I am, yeah.
So how is it, comparing to traveling by a plane or I don't know, bus or whatever?
Yeah, I think people think it's quite a daunting idea to travel by bicycle, but I always say once you give it a go, you realise quite how easy it is. Even if you're not a particularly fit person, you go at your own pace. It's an exercise where you're always sat down, so that's a benefit as well. And it's a beautiful way to travel in that you're at a speed where everybody you pass, you make eye contact with. You're very connected with your environment, rather than enclosed in some bubble like a car, or traveling fast on a motorbike where sometimes you don't get much idea of the places you are passing. I love my food as well, so I'm always catching a smell, and I can detour for some nice delicacies along the way. And I think one of the main ideas for this journey by bicycle is traveling by plane. I find it quite a disconnected way. It's convenient if you have limited time, but if you're lucky enough to have the time, the advantage over flying is that you see the gradual change in cultures and customs and geography from one place to another, rather than being transported from one place to another without seeing the in-between. So it's quite exciting to see how how similar areas are, and how the gradual change from a very sort of Western European places to the Turkish boundary between the Middle East and also the east coast of Africa has enormous similarities with the west coast and India in general, with the migration of people. And I tell you, I had some of the best Indian food I've had so far was from Gujarati families in East Africa. So you kind of start to pick up on all this history and connections between people that maybe you'd miss with the usual fast way of traveling that people do nowadays. So
So by hearing all that, I kind of think that you had a quite journey and you must have some amazing memories. So could you share like one or two amazing memories happened, amazing stuff happened with in the journey?
yeah, I think people ask me often for particular things that happen, and I'm not. I think I take it for granted the oddness of this travelling sometimes, and don't appreciate what registers as unusual for people. I think travelling through Africa, being chased by troops of baboons down the road, to seeing zebra and giraffe by the side of the road was quite exotic for me. Getting lost in the highlands of Tanzania for days and having to rely on the generosity of passing tribespeople was, I think, when I get home and when I start to digest my experiences and kind of think them over, these are possibly the things that will register most strongly for me. But the one thing that I've always found with traveling, and that I have found with this journey, is the commonality between people. Wherever I've gone, cities, countryside, communities that are Christian or Muslim or Hindu or all sorts, the people I sit down by the side of the road with and talk to have the same passions, the same concerns, the same generosity and humour, and it's quite reassuring, especially for me in my homeland, where quite often the media and our politicians will like to tell us how different we are and how much we have to fear from this person or that person, to actually realise that there's a common humanity that stretches across all these borders. So I think for me this is the most rewarding part of the travel, is to meet people in the most strange, exotic places and have them remind me of people I know in half a world away or half a culture away and stuff. So I think this is what I like. Plus the food. I live for the food along the journey. So.
So some people consider travel as a very spiritual experience, you know. So when you go through places, you experience something else. So what is your opinion about that?
Yeah, I grew up when I was brought up by my mother. I never was channeled into a specific faith, although most of my community are people of one faith or another. But I think where I would say my faith is now as an adult is, as I mentioned before, in the commonality of humans around the world, the compassion and the humanity that people share. I would say my faith is in humans rather than something different. So to have such a broad experience of meeting human beings in different places, it is very spiritually enriching. To know that someone in a village in a mountain hundreds of kilometers from anywhere in Africa has the same general compassion and generosity and humour as someone in a city such as Istanbul, it reaffirms my faith in human nature and human generosity. And also travelling as a cyclist and on a very small budget, quite often I'm having to rely on the generosity of people. My first day in India was possibly, it was a mixture of my worst day of traveling and my best day of traveling over the 3 years. I arrived at 4 o'clock in the morning. I knew there were problems with the currency, so I didn't bring any money. I thought I'd arrive, go to the ATM, get the currency, and go. Yeah, I arrived on Christmas Day on a Sunday, and spent 15 hours riding around and couldn't find any money anywhere, and I had nothing in my pockets. I couldn't buy food, I couldn't buy water, I couldn't buy anything. The water I got by just asking people in shops. I explained I had no money, they helped me. One shop I went into, I tried to buy something on my card, but my card wasn't working, so I left, and the man came out and he was very concerned. He said, "Are you sure you don't need some water?" And he was prepared to give me the water that I could not afford to buy. As I travelled towards the end of the day, I knew I had no money to pay for somewhere to stay, and was beginning to ask in all the temples and churches along the way for camping. And just as the light was going, I began chatting with another cyclist who was an engineer in one of the local factories. He offered to buy me some fruit juice because I'd said I'd missed all this wonderful Indian fresh fruit juices. We talked some more, and then he said, "Oh, you have to come back and stay at our house." He was living with his colleagues from work. So I had a bed for the night, and then he asked his neighbour to cook some food, and we stayed up all night chatting. And so like I say, it was started as the most difficult of days and ended up with meeting some wonderful people and receiving most generous behaviour from these people as well. So the worst and the best of days was my first day in India.
So I hope that after watching this video, a lot of people will be interested in traveling or inspired by you maybe to travel around the world. So this is Sharath signing off for PU Enquirer.